Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and I want to talk Spike Lee. I want to talk about an upcoming documentary series that obviously is his, obviously timed around the 20th anniversary of the events of 9/11. Now, obviously today, and I've said obviously, he's being attacked for this. And, you know, he wasn't really attacked too hard in the initial New York Times piece. Coincidentally, I recently did an interview, a 2-hour interview with Kevin Roose of the New York Times. I'm assured that when his piece comes out, he's going to come on the show and we're going to talk about it. And hopefully we're going to have a lively discussion. Because last night I got sent basically 2 parts of this New York Times piece where he questions not only Building 7, obviously, but then also questions the other Twin Towers. And there's a large section of this that apparently is with architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth. And I've just got to say bravo. Bravo. We're going to do a lot on this broadcast, by the way. We're going to talk about 2 aspects of Spike Lee. And we're going to talk a little negatively about him as well. He's not perfect. And none of us are, by the way. I was very disappointed with Spike Lee promoting the masking, the shots, those things. But when you read this article, even beyond the 9/11 stuff, it's very open-minded and telling people, you know, they're going to make their own decisions, everybody. Like, people are going to have their own viewpoints, which is good. Which is good. At least he's very open-minded about this. And let me say this. There are 2 things that are really interesting other than Spike's movies in general. Now, I happen to like a lot of Spike's movies. I don't love all of them. I haven't seen all of them. But the guy's a very, very talented filmmaker. One of those dark horse films a lot of people don't really watch that I think is really good is 25th Hour with Edward Norton. Also an underrated performance for Norton. And he just continually kind of does his own thing. I was also extremely impressed when he did the Katrina documentary when the levees broke and questioned whether or not there was the possibility that they blew those levees. He actually put that out there, right? I mean, you got to give the guy credit for all of that, okay? You know, again, whether you love him or hate him politically, you love him or hate him via his entertainment, he is one of those iconoclasts of a generation, okay? So, we're going to flash back to pre-9/11. I think this was all the way back in 1999. I probably look it up, but, you know, it's in there. It's pre-9/11. It's either 99 or 2000. And Spike Lee came to my college, SUNY Oneonta, and spoke about, you know, She's Gotta Have It, which is his first film, and how difficult it was to get made, how he had to spend a crazy amount of money, right, just to get the equipment and gear, etc. And basically, you know, do a lot of what Kevin Smith eventually did, is go into all this debt and, you know, hope and pray that this was going to be his moment. He said, that's over. He said, that's over. He's like, you're not going to have to do that in the future. You're going to be able to make your own films. And at the time, I was going to school for graphics. You know, a lot of people know that obviously I do my own thumbnails and all the, you know, AV here and blah, 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 blah. But initially, you know, I thought I might do 3D modeling. I was doing editing there. And I had just gotten my first DV Handycam. I thought that was awesome. You know, you could shoot different things, edit them down. And it also gravitated me towards, I guess, documentaries. Now, at the time, you know, Spike Lee obviously wasn't known as a documentary filmmaker. This upcoming series and Katrina, I think, are going to solidify him as a very good documentary filmmaker. But again, I'll wait to watch it. Okay? Second story. And this one's going to come into play because this is also going to be a watch-along with a segment from Loose Change Final Cut. And the reason we're picking Loose Change Final Cut is we've done a lot of watch-alongs and segment pieces from Fabled Enemies, right? But that's because we're not focusing on the physical anomalies, and that's what that film is. Now, when we are focusing on the physical anomalies and the demolition of the towers, I think it is important to present the best evidence possible. And I think Loose Change Final Cut did that. From the talking heads in between the actual science and the news clips, it's something, if you haven't seen, maybe this is going to bring you in and make you understand why we're here now. We don't even have 50 thumbs up, guys. Can we get the thumbs up over on YouTube? And here's the other thing. YouTube has been age restricting my 9/11 content. That's important, okay? They age restricted Anthony Saltalamasia's straight up eyewitness account for 20 plus minute eyewitness account. What happened to him that day? He's not allowed to tell that to under 18-year-olds. Barry Jennings stuff that is not going to be in this part of the film. But Barry Jennings, also censored. Under 18. So they're restricting history now. That's really, really, really important. So guys, before we get into it, we get into the story. We talk about, I think it's 20 and a half years is the documentary series and what Spike Lee says. And again, now he's being smeared today. This came out yesterday. But they don't want to give 9/11 Truth any momentum other than trying to make people that might believe this domestic terrorists. Remember that, okay? And Kevin Roose, prove me wrong. I thought we had a good conversation. Who knows how you actually think I am in my private life. You too, Berlinger. I don't know if you're watching any of this or have been hip to my stuff or I'm still in consideration for this documentary, but a lot of you guys know I'm a regular person. So before we get into this, I need you to thumbs it up, subscribe, and share. We should be peaking over that 63,000 mark again, but I'm sure I'll piss people off and they'll unsubscribe, or they just unsubscribe people anyway. They don't recommend the channel. We're riding dirty on 2 strikes for another 3 days, guys, and then we lose that second strike. Oh, yeah. But here's how you solve that issue. You Rockfin. Again, last night's Mixed Martial Mindset, there were so many things that we couldn't talk about that we did talk about and analyze on the flip side. If you see Uncensored there, go over, check it out, make the free account, follow me there. But then if you do want to support the program, that's how you do it. $9.99 a month gets you everybody's premium content. I'm going to try to throw some throwbacks up there today, okay? I know you guys love the throwbacks for premium members, but $100, and guess what? You get a full year of Rockfin, everybody's stuff. You save $20, and it also helps support this broadcast when you endorse me. All the documentary films are free, by the way. And they're also on Rockfin, but they're in the playlist section down below here on YouTube. Loose Change Final Cut is what we're about to watch after we go over Spike Lee, okay? I hope that you go and watch that and then watch Fabled Enemies and understand why 9/11 is so important, okay? And then, if you still haven't seen Invisible Empire and Shade the Motion Picture, I think you're going to be surprised with the parallels we're seeing between what I was talking about then and what is actually happening in real time now. Okay. So he's got questions. And the other thing I liked about this is that he hopes the legacy of this documentary series is that Congress reinvestigates. Now, I don't know whether Congress is ever going to do this, right? And if they do, are they just going to whitewash it again? I mean, I haven't heard any major media organization, let alone most of the alternative ones, even discuss the Dark Overlord documents that came out, almost 2 years ago now. Almost 2 years ago. It'll be 2 years ago on the 1st, I think. Maybe even 3 years ago on the 1st. Man, I think it's been over 2 years. No one went through those, other than a couple researchers other than myself. Okay? And those had big bombshells in them. Big bombshells. And that people should have paid attention to and did not. But they love that term conspiracy theory. Spike Lee is living up to his outspoken reputation. Again, the controversial filmmaker is dropping bombshell statements about 9/11 conspiracy theories while on the promotion tour for his new HBO documentary series, New York's Epicenter, 9/11, 2021 half. 9/11 to 2021 and a half. Interesting. Man, who knows what's going to happen here again? But, you look at this. In addition, the usual talking heads, Bill de Blasio, Ocasio-Cortez, Chuck Schumer, frontline workers, the Oscar-winning filmmakers' new 4-part docuseries also features full-blown conspiracy theorists who perpetuate the notorious notion that jet fuel can't melt steel beams. That's why we're about to watch this. See, that's a meme. That's ridiculous. What we're saying is there was molten metal and temperatures well beyond what jet fuel can produce. Not jet fuel can't melt steel beams. You know what I'm saying? So architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth, they're in on this. And it's true. The amount of heat that it takes to make steel melt, the temperature's not reached. And then the juxtaposition of the way Building 7 fell to the ground. When you put it next to other building collapses that were demolitions, it's like you were looking at the same thing. Correct. And, Spike Lee, also, for those that don't know, we're dropping this other one, was probably one of the first people in the entertainment industry to watch the original Loose Change. I wasn't even involved. And, Dylan used to tell that story because he used to go down to Ground Zero, and I think it was Harry. He has a piece in one of the extras, but Harry gave it to him, and, used to talk to Spike Lee when he used to go down there to the World Trade Center. But, I like this. He says, I'm going to respect the intelligence of the audience. People are going to make up their own minds. Good. So I'm awaiting at least that part of it, but you guys don't have to wait for this. Okay, and this is important. So, for all the skeptics out there, we're gonna play a pretty good segment of just some of the evidence. We're not even gonna play the whole section of controlled demolition at 1 and 2 on top. We're not even really gonna get into 7.
They only claim to get to collapse initiation and state flatly that it led to global collapse. The report, admittedly, does not actually include the structural behavior of the tower after the conditions for initiation were reached and collapse became inevitable.
We were charged with finding out the cause of the collapse, and we found what happened. I think we've scientifically demonstrated what was required to initiate the collapse. Once the collapse initiated, the video evidence is rather clear. It was not stopped by the floors below, so there was no calculation that we did to demonstrate that, what is clear from the videos.
NIST concludes that they found no evidence suggesting that the World Trade Center towers were brought down by controlled demolition. Where would people get an idea like that?
So let's just stop right there. Think about this. They said they did no calculations whatsoever to see why there was total failure throughout the building. Think about that. How ludicrous and absurd on its face.
1. Except for material that was blown outwards, the Twin Towers collapsed into their own footprint symmetrically at nearly free-fall speeds. Newton's laws of motion determine how long it takes an object to travel a certain distance in complete freefall. In a controlled environment, an object dropped from the roof of either twin tower would reach the ground in 9.2 seconds. The 9/11 Commission report will state, at 9:58, the South Tower collapsed in 10 seconds. Even NIST says the tops of the buildings came down essentially in free fall. Judge for yourself.
Just where does the top part of that building go as it's tipping over? Come on. Can we be adults?
And our conclusion is that the building should not have fallen that rapidly if indeed fire caused the collapse. And in fact, there's one mechanical engineer, Gordon Ross, in the Journal of 911 Studies, who's done a thorough analysis based on conservation of momentum.
If the official story was correct, then the heating that was supposed to cause the failure would have been a much slower event, and it would have been an asymmetric event. For the tower to collapse straight down onto itself flies in the face of what we know about steel and how steel behaves. When we have a failure in one area, then the failures tend to continue within that area, and you'd see an asymmetric collapse, possibly the upper section falling off, as it twisting away from the tower and falling off. But it's very unusual to see the upper section falling straight through the path of the greatest resistance, which was straight down through the middle of the tower.
The path of greatest resistance. Yeah, nothing strange about that, right?
It just does not add up.
2. Molten metal exceeding 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit was discovered in the rubble of Ground Zero, underneath the Twin Towers and Building 7.
Now again,
Even with heavy rain on
let me just say this: the debunkers are always saying that the molten metal doesn't exist. It can't exist for them. They never address it, right? That was when Callan was talking about it. He would go, well, it didn't have to get hot enough to melt the beams. I'm like saying, look, man, I'm not saying it did. I'm saying for the collapse. What I'm telling you is that the molten metal exists. Do you get it? It exists. Come on.
September 14th and 21st. A constant stream of fire retardants and water, described as creating a giant lake. These fires would not be extinguished until December 13th, 2001, making it the longest burning structural fire in history. Was the jet fuel responsible? Dr. Frank Gale, who was working with NIST, claimed in 2005. Your gut reaction would be that the jet fuel melted the steel. Indeed, it did not. The steel did not melt.
The temperatures that we know existed within the collapse, within the debris pile, are physically impossible from an atmospheric jet fuel fire. Cannot be done.
It cannot be done. Now watch. The NIST guy just denies it. He denies it exists.
I'm curious about the pool of molten steel that was found in the bottom of the towers.
I am too.
And
Please tell me about it. Have you seen it?
well, not personally, but eyewitnesses there found huge pools of molten steel beneath the towers, and some scientists don't think that the collapse of the building could have melted all that steel.
First of all, let's go back to your basic premise that there was a pool of molten steel. I know of absolutely nobody, and no eyewitness who said so, nobody who's produced it. I was on the site, I was on the steel yards, so I don't know that that's so.
You get down below and you'd see molten steel running down the channel rails. Like you're in a foundry. Like lava.
From a volcano.
Underground, it was still so hot that molten metal dripped down the sides of a wall from Building 6.
However, they do hit hot spots occasionally, and everything stops.
There were fires of 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit below the ground.
I can't.
On record, let me just say that is in the record. You know I'm no fan of Giuliani. Pataki said similar things. Over 2,000 degrees, and this guy, I don't know that that's so. He just denies that that it could even be possible. Not that it's real, not that they know, not that he's wrong, but I don't know that that's so. Okay.
I don't know that that's so.
There's video of it.
Melted around 2,600 degrees Fahrenheit. I think it's probably pretty difficult to get that kind of temperatures in a fire.
So again, he admits that it shouldn't be there. And then you look at the thermal NASA imagery, it's clearly there all over.
Well, NASA pictures, thermal images showed those sorts of temperatures in the basement.
Could you send them to me?
Okay.
He knows he's full of shit. Okay? Period. He knows it. So, Spike, keep going, bro. I hope that you not only watched that first, but you watched all these other ones, because we're going to get down and dirty. Again, the reason we're going over Loose Change Final Cut in this subsection is because obviously he's focusing on the demolitions in the 4th episode.
My name is Mark, and I'm the individual who was questioning Dr. Gross, and he asked me to email to him those thermal images. When I approached him after his talk to get his email address for that purpose, he refused to provide it to me. I think this is important because it reveals the attitude of the NIST investigators, which is one of willful ignorance of what really happened on 9/11.
As well as the molten metal in the debris, it was also observed prior to the South Tower's collapse. Also, a minute and 20 seconds before collapse, large amounts of white smoke begin pouring from the base of the South Tower. Three, the concrete, and in fact, virtually everything except the metal inside the Twin Towers was pulverized as the building collapsed.
And no one talks about, by the way, that there was smoke coming up just before. And people are going to try to dismiss the secondary explosions and the eyewitness accounts we're about to show. But let's grow up again. Let's be adults. Let's not play by emotions. We're almost 20 years ago. Look at how much we've been lied to in just the last 2 years. Not 4 years, not 5 years, not just war on terror. Just the last 2 years. The amount of lies that we've been told are tremendous.
This pulverized material created pyroclastic dust clouds that raced down city streets, coating lower Manhattan in a fine dust. Pyroclastic clouds generally occur during two events: volcanic eruptions and controlled demolitions. Four, steel beams weighing up to 200,000 pounds were thrown laterally up to 500 feet. A cross-section from the World Trade Center weighing approximately 300 tons was embedded in the southeastern corner of the American Express building. This piece would have had to travel at least 390 feet, maintaining enough kinetic energy to embed itself in the corner of the building.
What we should have seen in the debris pile was a pyramidal shape. If it had been a gravity-driven collapse, we would have seen a roughly pyramidal shape or a conic shape. What we actually did see was a massive ejection of dust and debris and large sections of steel from well away from the towers, tens of meters away from the towers. That's hard to see a reason for that within a gravity-driven collapse.
5. Firefighters and eyewitnesses reported a series of explosions before and during the collapses.
And we heard the noise associated with an implosion.
Secondary explosion on Tower 2.
Some sort of explosive device.
We're obviously having a bit of trouble right now maintaining our location because we just heard one more explosion.
There was another major explosion.
Do you know anything about those extra explosions we heard?
No, I do not.
Were they car bombs?
I have no idea, ma'am.
The street shook, and I heard like an explosion.
Do you know if it was an explosion or if it was a building collapse? To me, it sounded like an explosion. We heard a very loud blast, an explosion. They were taking photographs and securing this area just prior to that huge explosion that we all heard and felt.
Not clear now is why this explosion took place.
When there was some sort of collapse or explosion.
From street level, as though it had exploded up, a giant rolling ball of flame, and the firefighters screamed, "Run!"
It was this blast of warm air. It wasn't hot. It was warm. And it picked me up and threw me up against the wall of the building.
You were picked up off the ground.
Physically picked up off the ground.
I remember an explosion. At that point, I got knocked out. I don't remember anything. Then I got up, and I looked out the window because the windows exploded, and the street below caved in. And at that point, there was like fireballs coming up.
An hour later than that, we had that big explosion from much, much lower. I don't know what on earth caused that.
About 15 minutes after they made their entry, we heard a boom. I don't know if that was the infrastructure that was going or another explosion.
Again, there has been a second explosion.
John, just seconds ago there was a huge explosion, and it appears right now the second World Trade Tower has just collapsed.
All of a sudden I heard rumbling, and we all started running away from it. The glass blew out and threw me onto the sidewalk, and I couldn't see for 20 seconds.
It was like holy hell coming down them stairs. And then when we finally got to the bottom, they were coming out on the mezzanine level there. And another explosion came right from it, just everyone flying.
We stuck on the stairs for a while. We finally got down to the lobby. Then we get to the lobby, it was this big explosion.
So I was real lucky. I don't know what happened to the people behind me when that blast occurred.
And was actually on the 78th floor of the second tower and was evacuating the tower and experienced all these explosions and made his way back down.
We presume because of the initial explosion, there may have been secondary explosions as well that were detonated in the building by these terrorists.
There was a secondary explosion, probably a device either planted before or on the aircraft that did not explode until an hour later.
I heard a second explosion and another rumble and more smoke and more dust. I ran inside the buildings, the chandelier shook, and again, black smoke filled the air. Within another 5 minutes, we were covered again with more silt and more dust. And then a fire marshal came in and said we had to leave because if there was a third explosion, this building might not last.
Eyewitnesses also reported that explosions had taken place in lower levels of both the North and South Tower.
They were having coffee in the World Trade Center when the first plane struck.
And all of a sudden it sounded like, I don't know where the subway is, but it sounded like a subway collision, a bomb, and it was just pounding, boom, 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 and I literally thought the subway had exploded. And
the ladies that are with me were in the World Trade Center in the first building and escaped through the lobby where they report they believe there was a bomb in the lobby.
Just get out of the tunnel and the blue. The subway tunnel? Yeah.
Yes, I was right there. I was down in the basement, came down, all of a sudden the elevator blew up, smoke. I dragged the guy out, his skin was hanging off, and I dragged him out, and I helped him out to the ambulance.
And when I got up to the concourse level, it was just like, like gunfire and then just 3 big explosions.
And even the turnstile was burnt and was sticking up, and they just told us to run.
I heard the first explosion, and the elevator blew up.
And as we were coming out, we passed the lobby. There was no lobby. So I believe the bomb hit the lobby first, and a couple of seconds then the first plane hit.
And you know what? Here's a firefighter that they demonized when he came out and told his story. Here's another eyewitness we went out and got. So many eyewitnesses. Everybody always acts like, this when they want to come at me about things that weren't in this or that. I've tried to, explore everything. And in this one, we found so many eyewitness accounts. And remember, this film, really did focus on those physical anomalies and the fact that there were explosives in the basement level. That goes along with Felipe David, Anthony Santamacia, and Willie Rodriguez. You got it? You got it? So, look, this film is 2 hours plus. It's available free in the playlist section, period. You can go watch it right now. You can go make an account over at Rockfin or just watch it over there as well. I do want to thank Glenn Combs and Dustin Tidbull for the tips. Kevin Pass last night, Skip M, Drew McMahon, and others. You are helping support this program. I need you to, we didn't even get 200 thumbs up on this one, okay? Remember, Spike Lee, whether you love him or hate him, whether you agree with him all the time or you don't, and again, I haven't loved what he's done throughout this pandemic, but you got to understand he's also probably still in that left and right box. You notice all those talking heads, right? AOC, Schumer, de Blasio, all that stuff, they're the talking heads. He can envision evil on that level because Republicans were in power, right? Even though Bush was nothing more than a puppet, a figurehead, right? Those people behind Bush, all right, they were not. Donald Rumsfeld was not. Wolfowitz was not. Cheney was not. Okay? Those guys were the real deal. Colby Waterman, thank you so much. I appreciate that tip on the way out. So thumbs it up, subscribe, and share. Okay? Remember, on top of that, to Rockfin. We actually have it pinned at the top, Invisible Empire and New World Order Defined. Again, I know that's terminology that might turn some people off, but if you just didn't notice, that documentary is pretty well sourced, pretty well done. I'd like to think Invisible Empire is as well. Please check them out. They're free. What do you got to lose, huh? What do you got to lose? You got nothing to lose. I do want to thank Odyssey for backing it up. Again, we could be kicked off of YouTube at any time. We've had the channel taken twice. I'm going to try to kick out some more jams today. There's other things we need to discuss. Tucker Carlson and Jason Whitlock talking about Satanism last night on the show. I thought that was something worth discussing. So, again, all the docs are free. It's not about left or right. It's always about right and wrong. Okay? I love you.